For USCFootball.com, Connor Morrissette and Chris Trevino, we're back on campus after Wednesday's football practice of Missouri State week, the opening game for USC coming up on Saturday. Chris, how you doing?
Feeling good. Our last instant before the actual season begins, so I'm gearing up. I think the next time we do this will be from the Coliseum, talking about what we expect a big USC win. So got to get through one more, Connor.
Yes, we do. As you said, this is instant analysis. We can no longer watch any of practice, but Chris and I come and see the guys come out to practice to see if we can see any injury notes or just anything that is noteworthy. And today, Jakeem Stewart, like yesterday, still in a walking boot. That obviously doesn't lend itself to leading us to think he will play Saturday, but Lincoln Riley did say yesterday 50-50 on whether Jakeem will play or not, but we'll see on that. I think we're both leaning no, but never say never. Tomorrow we're not going to be here, but if he's in the walkthrough, that would be a good sign. So maybe we can get some information tomorrow, but not really looking good for him.
I believe Riley will be speaking on Friday instead.
Yes.
So we'll have a clear update on that when he speaks to the media on Friday morning. So we'll know probably by then. But yes, if he's able to do the walkthrough on Thursday, that's usually like the last chance they have a chance to play this weekend. Again, we spoke on Tuesday's in this analysis. You don't need Jakeem Stewart to beat Missouri State. You do not need that. You have plenty of depth at defensive tackle. Get some of those young guys in. So not the end of the world if he's not there. So I'm also leaning towards him not playing this weekend.
We also saw one new scout team addition, true freshman linebacker A.J. Tuatele, and Alex Graham, who Danton Lynn was asked about after practice. Looks like he might be dealing with something. We'll try to get some clarity on that on Friday. Chris, I know you heard something that he may not be healthy. He was in line to start at nickel, and I asked Danton Lynn if Alex Graham can't play, who are the guys who you feel comfortable filling in there. And Lynn, he's always gone back to Kamari Ramsey. I think this year, expect to see Kamari Ramsey at the line of scrimmage more than last year. That's just based on stuff we've seen in practice and based on Lynn's comments. I think they really like Bishop Fitzgerald, who we talked to today, as the deeper safety, so that could be how USC lines up this year. And that would, if Ramsey's playing nickel, that would allow for potentially someone else to come in, whether it's Christian Pierce, whether it's Kennedy Urlacher. I kind of think that if USC has to tinker with that, if Graham isn't available, that's the way they would do it. Kevin Longstreet's a name who could help as well. And then Lynn said a bunch of the other safeties can play that position. A big thing is versatility with Danton Lynn. We asked him right when he got hired, what's the most important characteristic for your players? He said versatility. It seems like they have a good amount of players, even with two nickels down right now, potentially one for sure, Prophet Brown, and then Alex Graham.
I would say keep Kamari Ramsey far away from the nickel position, as it seems to be cursed this season.
True.
With Prophet Brown going down for half the season and now Alex Graham being a little banged up, maybe not available for Saturday. Keep them away. And all jokes aside, they have options. It's just probably frustrating to have lost your projected starter than the guy who was stepping up in a big way to fill that spot. But again, Missouri State, you can tinker with that spot. DJ Harvey also has slot ability. Kevin Longstreet, as you said, Kamari Ramsey. There are plenty of options they could throw at that nickel spot against this Bears passing attack. So we'll see. Again, Missouri State, preseason game, we'll see a lot of tinkering there, but it sucks because Alex Graham had a lot of momentum, and I know he was one of those obviously freshmen pegged to start possibly, so we'll have to see who steps up there, and they're going to get a bunch of guys in that position for Missouri State week.
Our friend Keely Orr asked Danton Lynn, what's one question you want to have answered Saturday about your defense? And he said, can we get pressure with 4? That is the big theme of this season. USC doesn't want to be as reliant on the blitz as they were last year. They want to get home with Cameron Fountain, with Anthony Lucas, with Braylon Shelby, the defensive ends, guys who last year had some nice moments but weren't as consistent as you would maybe expect the traditional USC defensive end group to be. That, to me, is a big part of this season. How much better is that defensive end group? It seems like, based on what we're hearing, a lot better. Lynn seems more confident, but he wants to know, can this defense get to the quarterback with 4?
That would be a huge thing for USC's defense, and we have been pumping up this defensive front, how much they've invested in size and depth and growth with those 3 defensive ends, Braylon Shelby, Anthony Lucas, and then Cameron Fountain, who we think could lead this team in sacks. But yeah, I remember, being at Allegiant Stadium a year ago, watching the LSU game, and midway through I was thinking, man, if they cannot get consistent pressure, it's going to be a long season for the USC defense. They were able to, come up with stuff at times, but for the most part, we know they weren't a good pressure team without having to dial up stuff. 21 sacks last season, that's not going to do it. The big-time college football level, they need to at least, get to that 35 range. And, based on what we've seen this season, we think that can happen. And getting 4 to the quarterback with just 4, that would be huge. And that would push USC's defense towards that elite status, that we saw with Denton Lynn and that 2023 group at UCLA. So, getting 4 to the quarterback. And again, even if they do it on Saturday, this Missouri State offensive line is not very good, but it would at least give them a lot of confidence moving forward as the schedule gets a lot harder. So, definitely be on the lookout for that pressure they're able to generate without any special blitzes or exotic pressures coming in.
And then in the middle of that defensive line, if you can get pressure from that spot, we all know how important that is. Do you feel the way I do? Devin Tompkins is probably going to be the guy who can get the most pressure on the quarterback this year from that middle position. Maybe Jakeem Stewart, too, once he gets back to full health. Who do you like in the middle in terms of getting to the quarterback?
Have you not met me? I'm very in on Devin Tompkins.
I know.
Yeah. So, Devin Tompkins, big breakout guy. Pencil it in. I've been, buying up that stock. I've been telling people to buy that stock. So, Devin still has some growth to do, based on the PFF numbers. I know that's not everything, but obviously he's a young player. He was a basketball player, and he's developed fantastically since he got to USC. And now this is the kind of year you circle. It's like, okay, this is the scouts are going to be looking at him this year. Big Ten coaches are going to be looking at like, oh, we got a plan for number 8. So that's the kind of year I'm expecting from Devin Tompkins. And I'm not saying he's going to be like a 13 sack guy, no, but I think he can be a consistent guy in the middle to get pressure. And obviously, he's going to be moved around a lot. He's going to play at nose tackle in some formations. He's going to play that 3 tech where he'll be more comfortable. But he's also going to play on the edge. Danton Lynn's going to move this guy around, and he has said as much through spring and through fall, and then been telling everyone Devin Tompkins has kind of been the guy for him, and they call him captain. He's really emerged as a leader. So DT in the middle. I think there's a lot of expectation for him to start making more plays in the backfield.
Maybe Jade Abasiri is in that mix as well. I asked Danton Lynn about the linebackers behind Desmond Stevens and Eric Gentry. We've heard a lot of good things about Jaden Walker, but Elijah Newby, his name continues to come up a lot, Chris. He's been playing will linebacker primarily, backing up Eric Gentry. There's a chance that Newby is the 3rd linebacker this season. Maybe it's Jaden Walker, maybe it's Newby, but it sounds like that's that top 4 of Desmond Stevens, Eric Gentry, Jaden Walker, Elijah Newby. They're fighting out for that 3rd spot. They play different positions primarily. Tamir Robinson, I think right now, is probably behind them. That doesn't necessarily mean he won't play a ton on Saturday and could break back into the mix, but Lincoln Riley said yesterday, that Elijah Newby was one of his MVPs of fall camp. He switched back from the defensive end spot to play linebacker, which to me at first I was like, the switching positions, that doesn't always necessarily mean you're going to play. It means that they don't know where to put you. But I think he's had a great camp, and I'd buy stock in Elijah Newby, that's for sure.
Absolutely. I'm very excited about that top 4, just looking at it with Elijah Newby and that athleticism, and that Jaden Walker with that just violence. He looks big hitter, looks so great out there moving around, and we should see a lot of them on Saturday. You should be seeing a lot of that combination, and I think Elijah Newby, as you mentioned, could be that 3rd linebacker, that guy who emerges as that Sam linebacker. We saw Anthony Beavers kind of play that spot last year when Eric Gentry went down with Mason and Easton Mascarenas-Arnold. Shout out to him for making the Browns roster as an undrafted free agent. Shout out there. But I think Elijah Newby set up to be that guy. Played defensive end in the spring. He has experience rushing off the edge. Super athletic, super speedy. And what makes a good pass rusher? Speed. So I think that's a great fit for him, and I'm really excited to see those two. I'm excited for Eric Gentry and Desmond Stevens, but I'm excited to see what the young guys have in Jaden Walker and Elijah Newby, who didn't get to play a lot, obviously, last year.
There was a note on the peristyle from David Law, our other friend, bringing up a lot of friends today, who talked about R.J. Sermons being a guy who's impressed him when he's been able to watch practice. I asked Lynn about Sermons today. The thing that stood out with him, you were talking about speed with Newby, it was speed with Sermons. We know what he did as a CIF track athlete at Rancho Cucamonga. It rivaled his football career. He is an incredible sprinter. He is so fast, and that really stood out to Lynn. Lynn talked about how Sermons, he's going to make mistakes. He's a younger player, but Lynn said his ceiling is incredibly high, and we just take note of that. I don't know how much we're going to see him this year, maybe on special teams, maybe a little bit at corner if he can really push in that competition as guys continue not to really separate, so we'll see there. But we kind of do that mental check-in when we talk about the true freshman. Okay, it seems like he's on the right path. R.J. Sermons certainly in that camp.
Yeah, I might have egg on my face when it comes to R.J. Sermons because didn't really hear a lot of buzz about him. Looked like he was maybe injured for a portion of practice. I don't know. There was just something going on with RJ Sermon. So I was like, okay, it seems like he's maybe falling down the depth chart. But come out this week, he's not wearing a scout number.
Yeah.
Other guys are wearing the scout number from the secondary, but not RJ Sermon's, which I thought was very interesting. Obviously, we know he has a lot of talent, that 10-3 elite speed. I'm surprised we still haven't seen him on kickoff return, but for all we know, that's happening behind those closed doors. But RJ Sermon's, reclassified, super young. DeCarlos Nicholson was talking about him like, I believe he labeled as him a 5-star talent. I don't know if he was ever that high in any rankings, but he was
on our competitor side.
Okay, well, there you go. He was saying, I've never, played with a 5-star caliber player, but you see it out there on the field. He has that speed. He has that natural ability. So as of right now, he's been impressing DeCarlos Nicholson, and, a guy who we think is going to start with Nicholson there. So he has drawn rave reviews from his older teammates. So RJ Sermons looks like we might see him on Saturday.
Great segue into talking about DeCarlos Nicholson. I asked him, do you feel like you're playing the best football of your life? He said yes. And then he said, I feel like a lot of us are playing the best football of our lives, though. It just seems to me, Chris, like DeCarlos, he needed last year to adjust, to get up to speed. At the end of the year, he started playing a little bit more, and now he's ready to take a next step. And I expect him to play a lot. We both do. He seems like a starter against Missouri State on Saturday. Does all the right things, says all the right things. I don't know how big of a jump it'll be, but I'm expecting a jump from him.
Absolutely. And I know DeCarlos kind of polarizing in terms of USC fans. So you saw him play last year, really struggled at times. And there were moments where it's like, oh, this isn't great. But by all accounts, he's been balling out this offseason. In spring camp, I talked to recruits that were on campus. It was like, number 17, like that's the guy who stood out to me. He knew where he needed to be. He's so long, looks like an NFL guy. And then obviously in fall camp, he's been stout in holding down his, what we see as a starting role for himself. I'm not saying he could be the number one cornerback, the guy who matches up against the offense's best receiver, kind of like Jalen Smith was last year. I'm not saying that could be him, but I think he does have NFL potential. He has the frame, he has the size, he has one more season. Didn't think he was going to have another season, and now he does. So that does a lot mentally. He has another chance to go out there and earn an opportunity at the next level and play at a high level. So I really like DeCarlos Nicholson going into this season. Again, we have to see it on the field. There has to be some growth because his play last year isn't going to hold up for a full season. But if we do see a jump, I think USC fans are going to be happy with what they see from number 17.
I know he allowed a big completion against A&M in the bowl game. I thought he had pretty good coverage on that play, and that was just a perfectly thrown pass. I know Lynn really likes his size. He likes the bigger cornerbacks. I left that bowl game thinking pretty highly of Nicholson, so we'll see if he can carry that over. A few other notes from some of the interviews today. Jacoby Lane, the receiver, spoke. Usually the offensive guys speak yesterday, but he has class, so he spoke today. He did not disclose how he broke his foot. I didn't really expect him to, but he chose not to disclose that, just so we're focused on Missouri State. And he really talked up Tanook Hines. Tanook Hines is the guy who continues to get a lot of buzz. Looks like he's going to be in the receiver rotation as a true freshman. Potentially, he'll certainly play Saturday. We'll see when the Big Ten games come around if he's still in that rotation. But he's a guy with a really high ceiling and someone who I know, Chris, you're really excited about too.
Yeah, I mean, people described him as a quote-unquote monster. And again, like we're talking with RJ Sermons on the offensive side, elite speed, 10'4", 6'1", bigger, faster Mekhi Lemon. What's not to love about a bigger, faster Mekhi Lemon? So really excited about Tanook and really excited to see what he's going to do on Saturday in his debut.
I spoke with Bishop Fitzgerald, USC safety. I know we don't play favorites and try not to do that, but I think he might be my favorite player on defense. I really like what I've seen from him in camp. I really like when he interviews with us. He just seems to have such a level head. He knows that he came from NC State for his last year at USC. He really went through the process of transferring and just thought it all out. And he said, hey, where do I have the best chance to play and learn? And he bet on himself coming here. He wasn't given a starting job when he was in the portal, but right away the staff was blown away, impressed with him, and he emerged alongside Kamari Ramsey. I have high expectations for him. I really think he's going to be a good player. I asked him, when you were in the portal and you were planning it all out, is this what you expected? And he said, yes, this is exactly what I was hoping for. Things are going according to plan. It just seems like he's a guy who's maybe a little bit under the radar, and I want to make sure we're giving him the respect he deserves. He's had a really good camp, and I expect big things from him.
I agree. I think he's underrated right now. You're talking about, Jakeem Stewart or other transfers that they have. I think Bishop Fitzgerald could have a huge impact on this defense. I know he's not a 360-pound defensive lineman. He's not a pass rusher, but I think he's going to upgrade that secondary. Just playing alongside, an NFL draft pick like Kamari Ramsey. I think they could be one of the best duos in the Big Ten, and that is not a crazy thing to say, knowing how good Kamari Ramsey is. And I think Bishop Fitzgerald is not being talked about enough, and hopefully, he plays up to the standard that me and you think he can play at.
Lincoln Riley said Monday on Trojans Live, I wouldn't trade my safety room for anything. The last thing I will mention is Danton Lynn. He was asked again, anyone separating at the cornerback spot? That's been a place that he said consistently throughout camp there hasn't been a lot of separation. They feel like they have a lot of depth. No one is standing out. He wants to see someone stand out, and no separation. So I think the Carlos Nicholson will start, as we've talked about, and then we'll see Chasen Johnson, DJ Harvey, maybe some of the younger guys, and it'll be that group at corner, and that competition continues into the season.
Yeah, I think if we're looking for a position group to watch, the cornerbacks and how that rotation plays out, hope Chasen Johnson full go, and he could eventually be a starting role. But Braylon Connolly, we've talked a lot about on this. I think it's going to be I think he played like one snap or something crazy last year, or not at all. So Carlos Nicholson was talking him up. He's seen the maturity take another leap this season, so I think he's earned some playing time in the Coliseum this Saturday.
Absolutely. USC 35.5-point favorite Saturday against Missouri State. We will have our picks on the website. I will not ask you to make a pick right now. Don't worry. This has been Instant Analysis. I'm Connor Morrissette. He's Chris Trevino. We'll see you Saturday. Come say hi if you see us.